New patch coming to Hearthstone. We got a new Battlegrounds heroes, even a minion, and some other small updates. Some really cool stuff in this one.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right. Patch 17.2 has arrived, primarily bringing with it some pretty big Battlegrounds updates. As you can see, new heroes, new minion, but also some cool bonuses no matter what kind of Hearthstone you play. So first off, let's just run through these Battlegrounds changes. Most importantly, perhaps of all, Direwolf Alpha has been removed from Battlegrounds. I know you're really, really sad about that one, right? No, I always thought Direwolf was one of the least compelling Battlegrounds minions. This is being replaced with a new beast instead, and it's a new tier 1 beast, the Rabid Sauralisk, which is a 3/1 instead of a meager 2/2 like the little Direwolf Alpha. And it reads, after you play a minion with Death Rattle, gain +1/+1. So both Death Rattle synergies in some ways, and of course you could use this for beast build complements as well. Beast build in particular, it does rely on some early Death Rattles, right? You've got things like your Rat Pack, for instance, that you love to have in those early Death Rattle builds, so it could start buffing this pretty substantially, and I think you could make this fairly big before you get to the in-game state. Plus, you could just bridge it with any kind of like random battle Death Rattle minion, you know, just like a piloted Shredder sometimes is a good thing to complement and sort of support those early boards where you just needed to dump something and you had 3 gold and a piloted Shredder is just a fine minion. Boom, you get a nice bonus on top of that. So I do think this is actually a really cool early game beast minion. It doesn't support the kind of token style as well as the full token like pack leader into Rat Pack. And I think the good news is that even when you shift into like late game builds, you're going to be playing Death Rattles all along the way, even in that token style, right? Kindly Grandmother, Infested Wolf, Savannah Highmane, even Goldrin are all Death Rattle minions. So this does scale with you throughout the course of the game. Now, I don't know if it's going to make it all the way to the late game. I could imagine the stats not being quite big enough and you replacing it as you refine that build into the kind of full Mama Bear, Gascoiler, you know, Goldrin, Death Rattle package. Maybe this gets swapped out for like a Baron Rivendare or something along the way. So I do think it's that kind of power bridge, though, to keep you going in the mid game that gives you that big stat body, can trade up really effectively into your opponent's biggest stuff. Now, is this going to be a good minion to buy on turn 1? I don't actually think it's too bad, right? It trades with the 2/3s in particular, so that can be nice because the 2/3s were often some of the best minions, but it also loses to the 1/1 tokens, right? So even a microbot kills your Rabid Sauralisk. So it kind of depends on what you're expecting your opponent to have, but I'd say a pretty weak turn 1 buy, something maybe you splash into a little bit later, rounds 4, rounds 5, round 6, as you start to see a beast package coming together. Unless you know you're gonna just lock into beast, this could be a pretty risky purchase. So all in all, I think a minion with some pretty cool utility. I definitely like it a lot better than Direwolf Alpha, the card it's basically replacing. I think it has way more upside, some high roll potential, and complements 2 builds, whereas Direwolf Alpha never really felt like it fit even into beasts. It always just felt like this really weak minion you just kind of had to buy sometimes. So this one, much, much better design and some cool, powerful potential as well. So moving on to the new heroes, there are actually 3 heroes. Also an important note here, I think it's going to be a little bit frustrating to some folks, is that you're only going to get immediate access to these heroes. I think it's starting tomorrow, May 12th, if you have the Battlegrounds perks pass. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait to play these for functionally 2 weeks. So there's a kind of benefit to having the pass. You get to early access heroes. Up first is Lady Vash, Evolving Electricity, which reads, after you upgrade Bob's Tavern, replace his minions with ones of a higher tier. So a nice little upgrade benefit here, right? And I'm assuming that means not a higher tier than the tavern, but instead a higher tier than the minion that was already there. Otherwise, if you upgraded like to tier 4, then you'd be, you know, getting tier 5 minions. That would be like insanely powerful. But if you had, you know, a tier 2, a tier 3, a tier 1, and a tier 2, and you upgraded, then those would each move up 1 spot, right? So you could time this in a way to make sure that you were hitting the tier you wanted to hit. So play this when you have like 3, or upgrade, I guess I should say, when you have like 3 tier 3 minions on board, and boom, you're gonna get 3 tier 4s to choose from, which I think could provide some really nice power spikes where it's like, oh man, I'm gonna get some great high tier minions very consistently here. Plus this is passive, so it's not costing you any gold or anything. It's just naturally fitting into your curve of gameplay. Now, there will be other instances where you just want to upgrade on the natural breakpoints. You've got that 6 gold upgrade. You want to upgrade, and maybe you didn't have a good board, or Lady Vash could be a little bit frustrating. Then it's like, oh, I don't really want to freeze this new board. I had a bunch of tier 1 minions. They're not going to be any good after I upgrade. And then you kind of lose the value of your hero power. So it's going to maybe take some careful decision making and reshuffling of when those natural breakpoints happen. And it's like, man, I'm going to wait. I'm going to roll one more and then save the upgrade for later, or buy down this round and save the upgrade for next turn, etc. So I do think there's a little bit of calculation there and maybe some skill decisions that are going to be tough for some players to make, but nonetheless, the upside is there, and sometimes it's going to high roll really nicely, and it's going to feel like this really, really big benefit. So moving on to Maev's Shadow Song up next. She has Imprison, which is 1 gold, and it says make a minion in Bob's Tavern dormant. After 2 turns, you'll get it with +1/+1. So I love that you're actually imprisoning stuff here with Maev. Great flavor. And the way this is going to work, presumably, is that you find some, let's say, tier 3 minion you like a lot. It's like a pack leader, and you want it for your synergy build. You make it dormant. It sits on board through the next couple rounds. It just keeps coming back dormant, and then eventually you get it, which means it's not just left on Bob's Tavern, but it's actually added to your hand with a little buff. So basically you get to buy a minion for 1 gold instead of 3, which is a nice little discount, and you get a buff to it as well. And it can also just, like, if you don't have enough gold to buy it the time you need it, you still get kind of like free refreshes and rolls and upgrades as well, right? Because you can basically bank that gold you would have spent into the future as well. Now, of course, the problems there are, it's like, if you find a minion you want it now, usually not later, right? Unless it's a really highly synergistic minion. So you can think about things like Soul Juggler, maybe, like, you're going demons, you're going to want that Soul Juggler eventually. Maybe it's going to give you a gold later, a gold minion upgrade later, so you buy it and you're happy to get it down the road. But it's just another one of those things where it's like delayed. It's like, man, is that minion really going to be relevant in 2 turns when I get it back later? I don't know. Maybe I've shifted my build. Maybe I'm doing something different. It's cheap, which is nice, and you can of course just sell it for a gold bonus. So it's not like it's really costing you anything other than just the opportunity cost of not having a different hero power. So there's always some gold benefit here and economy benefit. I guess I should say that gold benefit is true with token minions, not other minions. Those are only going to be worth 1 gold, of course, but still some economy flexibility there, which is nice, as you can kind of move costs and save things for future turns as well. That could offer more benefit than really just the +1/+1 or the minion selection. Ultimately, I think this feels kind of weak and awkward to me. It's going to be hard to find the moments where this lines up really, really well. They're going to be rare in the game, and otherwise it's just going to feel like you are doing some banking for the future, and only maybe once a game will you find somebody you're really excited about, and then it still has that chance to backfire. So for me, Maev, I don't really see this one panning out. I'm certainly not a Battlegrounds expert right now, but still play a little, still, 8,500 or so at MMR, and I don't see me ever wanting to play a minion like this. So up next here we have Kaelthas Sunstrider with Verdant Spheres. Every 3rd minion you buy gains +2/+2. And I think this is a really, really cool hero power, and potentially really strong one as well. First off, I really like passive hero powers in Battlegrounds. I think the things that just naturally feed into your game plan are really nice. You don't have to spend any gold. It doesn't change your breakpoints or your economy at all, which can be fantastic. And with this one, it really is passive. It's just like it's going to happen automatically, which is great. And you can line this up to really hit the targeted things you care about as well, I think. If you're doing things like Battle Cry shuffling, for instance, you buy 2 Battle Cry minions, you realize those buffs, then you buy the thing that you care about or want to buy. And even if you don't calculate it that way, it's still going to pay benefits, particularly in the early game. You've got that first minion, and then if you can buy a 3rd minion on your 3rd round, your 5 gold round, basically sell your tier 1 and buy hopefully 2 tier 2 minions. Having that one get +2/+2 is a really big buff at that stage of the game. And then you get another one a couple rounds later. And then, of course, throughout the course of the rest of the game, you're just going to start getting tons of extra little passive buffs. Now, it does mean that you have to keep buying things to realize the benefit here. So some builds may not support this as well. Things that are scaling off of early game minions may not work as well with Kael'thas, because maybe you've just got Battle Cry stuff that's getting buffed and you're selling it anyway. So it is going to take the right kinds of play styles and support for this one to work well. But I think particularly in the early game, it's going to feel really, really good, as many early game buff cards do, to give you that strong start so that you can make better decisions in the mid to late game. I think that's really the best part about good Battlegrounds heroes. It's allowing you that flexibility to upgrade faster and play for riskier plays down the line. I think Kaelthas provides you that opportunity while also still offering some upside in the late game as well, as long as you're really careful. I hope there's some sort of UI or indicator that tells you when your third minion is going to be, particularly if this persists across turns, as I presume that it does. I don't think it's only third minion in each turn, or it would specify such thing. So I don't know if you're going to be able to remember that well in some cases, but this may be a focus here where you really have to pay attention to exactly what's going on. And then finally here, some just quality of life updates for Hearthstone, which is really cool. First off, something we've been asking for like years, which is deck ordering. Oh my God, finally, you can move your decks into a different order, folks, which, you know, it's a small thing. Sure, like it wasn't mandatory, but it does feel pretty nice. I have to say, there's all the time I have these decks that are like left over. I kind of want to move like the sort of good decks to the top of the list and the decks we're working on to the bottom, all these little things. So you can rank yours by class now, alphabetical, do whatever you want. It's up to you. These are the small things that should have been in Hearthstone a long time ago. I'm glad they're finally going back and fixing some of these things. That's a great sign. Also some other small game improvements as they're listed here that they're not important enough or specific enough to really go into a lot of detail. But one other thing, Terran Gorfine did get a text update, which is pretty cool. He went from saying destroy all friendly minions to destroying all other friendly minions, because I guess it kind of implied maybe he killed himself in some cases, and some of the minions immediately with a buff. Maybe that was confusing to some folks out there if you hadn't seen the interaction before. So functionally the same. It's merely a card text update for clarity, which I'm totally cool with them doing those sorts of things. I frankly wish they do it more. So that's another good sign, just making the game a little bit better along the way. So all in all here, pretty cool patch. New Battleground stuff on the way. I think, of course, anytime you toss new heroes into the game, things are going to shift up and be fun. It may not result in like big meta changes. I don't think maybe one beast card is enough to totally reshift the meta, particularly when beast is already a relevant build in the late game with death rattle stuff. This just feels like it might add to that as opposed to take away. Direwolf Alpha is not a key minion for beasts or anything at all in the early game. So I don't expect a lot of huge changes to how Battlegrounds is playing out. But nonetheless, some really fun new stuff to play around with, and potentially some impactful heroes, I think, here with Lady Vash and maybe Kael'thas especially. So excited to see these in action. That said, if you guys have thoughts on these heroes, how they're going to work, if you think I got something wrong, of course, share that in the comments below. Even with Twitch chat here to help me, because I'm recording this live on stream. Still mistakes, still silly stuff out there. So share your thoughts, share your takes in the comments. But until then, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.